Courtney Brooke.
Hi,
Welcome to the Fieldswell Podcast.
thanks for having me. I'm so excited we've gotten this opportunity to connect.
Me too. I can't wait to dive in. So, you are a life coach who
Yeah,
helps individuals break free from limitations and embrace self love, empowerment, and growth.
yeah, I am. It's quite a statement, but it's a big honor. I
Yeah, we
love.
all we all need it, and I can't wait to dive into your story because it's really inspiring. Bring us back to the beginning of your story and paint the picture of how you became the resilient and determined powerhouse you are today.
I feel like it's a culmination of just my life specifically, but it really started out when I was a child. And I'm not trying to sound like so cliche, like, oh, my childhood shaped me, but I really do believe that I grew up in foster care. I was orphaned. I started in the system probably around 3 or 4 years old. Those of you that don't know the foster care system and how it works is you get separated from your family or your parents until they get their shit together, and then you get back together. And if you just keep back and forth, back and forth. So that was my childhood of my mother trying to constantly get it together. But then you're the social experiment, right? Then the kid starts to take a toll. And there was six of us. Um there's now five. My brother drowned in a pool when he was younger. Um but really it goes back to my childhood and all the events of just CPS, in and out of homes. The age of 5, I was in 5 homes. So probably by the time I was adopted, which was when I was 9, I was in probably 10 to 15 homes. I mean, the year of 5, I was in 5. So that wasn't even like half my childhood yet. And
Wow.
that is really where like the resilience building started.
Yeah.
Um, and then through college and my 20s were so hard. Um, Learning to be on my own, not knowing what to do or how much to make or how to budget money,
Mhm.
that's normal stuff, like, regardless of me being adopted, but then there's that life stuff.
Mhm.
Then I had my own branding business, and I really just wanted to work on this fulfillment piece. I did my branding and strategic content for plastic surgery centers for 6 or 7 years, and I coached doctors on how to bring a dimensional presence to social media when it hit the market. And then COVID hit, and I was like, you know what? I need to do something a little bit more fulfilling.
Yeah.
I am tired of looking at before and after pictures and picking out what people want for Botox or sitting in the room. Like, don't get me wrong, I love my aesthetics. I love everything about skincare and all of that stuff, but I needed something more fulfilling. And I live and breathe, for those of you that don't know me, I live and breathe like life. Like, life is so short
Yeah.
and we can seize it. And so I think that just the culmination of my childhood and then being adopted into that new family, learning dynamics of, does someone really love me? Like, am I
Um,
going to get sent back?
yeah.
And then being hyper independent and
Yeah.
hyper vigilant. I think that's been
Yeah.
like my.
Wow. I mean, I'm sure so many people have questions on what it was like to grow up in foster care for 9 years. That's a long time. Like, bring us back. What were the emotions that you would face and the feelings? I'm sure there was a lot of confusion. Like, how long am I going to be with this family? What's next for me? But you're also so young.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. Kids can go into the system as early as babies, right? And
Mhm.
that's usually what people want, as the babies. So
Mhm.
I was 9. We were deemed adoptable. When I say we, me and my older sister Holly, we were never separated in our whole foster care existence, and that's really rare.
Yeah.
But the feelings of being that young is, everything is so uncertain. You're placing a lot of power in people that don't really know you and are making decisions based off of psychiatric reports and therapist reports and
Mhm.
papers, and going and peering in front of courts, and they just make judgments and constant judgments. And you know that uncertainty taught me to be so self-reliant, so self-independent. And I still somewhat live that way. I
Yeah.
believe in I was tired of relying on everyone else, and so that's
Mhm.
when I shifted my power is and I even taught myself that
Yeah.
self-reliance piece that no one will ever give me but myself.
And that can go 2 ways, right? I'm sure that feeling of, like, waiting to be picked by someone can make
Yeah.
you feel like total victim mode, like, out of control of your own life. What was the moment like for you when you shifted and became self-reliant and realized, like, your own happiness and fulfillment was on you?
I don't think it's just one thing that shifted. I think that feeling of picking myself ebbs and flows. I'm still working on that, and in my 30s now, and I'm still a coach. I'm still human.
Yeah.
I don't think the pickingness is just one solid decision. I think that life shows up in so many ways and
Mhm.
tests us, and it's a reminder to keep picking ourselves, to keep
Mhm.
loving ourselves and letting that self-doubt go, or not living by what our past is. I think that feeling of, when you say it switched, I think it was maybe the first moment when I surprised myself. Oh wow, I can do this regardless of my past. I can do this regardless of what a stupid paper or a psychiatric evaluation says of me. I had to unlearn for the longest time that my self worth wasn't dependent on being chosen,
Mhm.
whether it is, whether you're not in foster care or not, whether you make that sports team,
Mhm.
get that job, get promoted. These are all
Mhm.
different examples of, that self worth. And it doesn't depend on these things. But as a coach, it shaped a lot of who I am because so many people in foster care or not, you know, we doubt ourselves. We have things that get in the way. We're a lot of us are waiting for that text or waiting to get validated, whether it is that promotion or how much money we make. I think that validation is in our society, whether you have my background or not. And
Yeah.
so that's like a big part of my coaching is helping those clients shift that perspective.
Yeah, 100%. It's much needed. I mean, I recently graduated with a master's in psychology and I learned all about the theory of attachment and
Yeah.
how, our attachment style, which is formed based on our relationship with our primary caregivers.
Yeah.
Secure, anxious, avoidant comes into play even in adulthood in how
Yeah.
we form adult relationships. And, it's easy to blame your parents. So many of us want to blame external circumstances. Okay, my parents are why I am this way. And like here you are, like showing up with all of you saying, yeah, here's what I went through. That was really hard and scary and confusing, but like I'm
Yeah.
choosing to work on myself and help
Yeah.
others based on what I've been through.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's we all have that choice.
Yeah.
Choose your hard. Choose to stay in that pattern for the rest of your life, or it's going to be hard either way, staying in that, or it's going to be hard to get out of it, but
Mm.
you're out of it, or you believe you can.
Yeah. We're reliving the past based on a memory inside of our mind, which is creating our reality. We all really, it starts in here. So I know, you're big on the power of choice. What's one excuse you hear from people all the time as a coach that drives you crazy and how do you help shut it down?
You know, I mean, the one thing is I don't have time. My husband's that can be a cursing and a blessing. I believe that I can go to San Diego for lunch, Paris for a cocktail, and the moon for the stars, and learn 3 languages on the way. I believe that what you say no to is what you're going to still keep doing. You know what I'm saying? Like when you keep saying that no, you're limiting yourself. But what if, And so when people say I don't have time, that drives me
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
crazy because it's not about time, it's about choice. And I had to learn early on growing up in foster care. I didn't have the luxury of waiting around. I didn't have life to slow me down. I either was sitting and just hoping, or I had to go get it myself because I didn't have someone leading me to soccer practice, or I didn't have someone sitting down and explaining the opportunities. It's either me or like, no, it's never going to happen. And so when I hear someone say they don't have time,
Yeah.
I challenge them. I actually say, well, what are you saying no to? why, if you're not prioritizing yourself, what are you saying yes to?
Mhm.
Because if you definitely have time to scroll and say yes to things you don't want to, and overthink and keep repeating those same patterns, that's ultimately a choice as well, right? So
Yeah.
whatever you're saying you don't have time for is also a choice.
Right.
And I question that.
Yeah. We all have the same amount of time. It's what we choose to do with that time. And I think as coaches, what we want to try and do is get people to see more possibilities and to believe, like, what if it does happen? What if it is possible?
Well, and if it doesn't get done, you have tomorrow, and that's
Yeah.
exactly how I see it. I don't necessarily, I'm not talking about like to-do lists. I'm not talking about, you know, how much homework or how much you have to get done your workday. Let's think not small, let's think big. Like, where do you want yourself to
Mhm.
go? And I hear even some clients say, "Well, I don't know if I can do that. I've never really done that. We'll see." And it's like that's where it starts though. It's like the "we'll
Mhm.
see." It's like the doubt is already there.
Right.
Like, just
Yeah.
try it and see.
Yeah.
It might not be perfect, but that's again is
Yeah.
like we don't have time. I think is we don't have time for the things that don't make us uncomfortable. And I think that's
Right.
what we need to make more time for is
Yeah.
the uncomfortability, because a lot of us, even our brains, the psychological aspect of our brains is we want to remain safe. So
Mhm.
whatever keeps us safe is just an automatic
Yeah.
response. But if you can outsmart that and like, well, am I afraid because I've never done it, or am I afraid because it's actually going to kill me? There's
Mhm.
two different
Right.
things here. 99% of the time, the thing that is they're afraid of is not actually going to kill them. So lean into that. I think people's mantras, if we could like reframe this, is I want to make time for things that make me feel uncomfortable,
Mm.
because that's where it happens.
Yeah, get comfortable getting uncomfortable. And look at you. It's almost like you look at your story. You're like, I made it through 9 years in foster care. I can do anything I set my mind to.
Right. But not even just like the 9 years. And then there's the reliving like a new family. Like
Yeah.
my mom said for the first 2 years, when I say my mom, I mean my adoptive mom.
Okay.
My mom said for the first 2 years of me being adopted, I had my bags packed because I still
Oh
didn't
my
believe
God.
that that was my home. So
Yeah.
just because adoption happens doesn't mean, okay, clean slate, everything is rainbows and butterflies.
Mhm.
There's a whole nother, like, it's a reentry, there's a new
Right.
familiar. So it's been a constant journey, but it
Mhm.
still is. And I'm not saying that, oh, that's going to stop me from getting close to people, trusting myself,
Mhm.
leaning into love, being open about my past. Like, I'm constantly working at it, and it
Yeah.
takes work. And whether it's someone eating out alone, if that's so scary to them, then take baby steps. Don't
Yeah.
just, that's like, it's a
Yeah. It
process.
is. It's like exposure therapy. Start slowly exposing yourself
Yeah.
to whatever you fear in life, and you'll start to realize like it's not that scary anymore once you do it in doses.
Right. Safe stress,
Yeah.
right? Make it safe. Like, to start with, like, sitting on your front porch getting coffee, and then, like, inch out into your car by yourself. Like, whatever you need to do, but I feel like people think, "Oh, I need to go straight for the big thing."
Right.
And that's where the overwhelmment probably comes in.
Yeah. How can I take this first step towards my goal? Focus on
Yeah.
that first step.
Yeah, and I think for me specifically, the gift that keeps on giving from adoption is, that trust to believe in people, that they're not just going to go away, because I was in and
Yeah.
out of home. So I learned that love was coming and going.
Right.
And so for me, my new current journey is vulnerability and sharing regardless of if they stay or go, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
practicing it. And
Yeah.
I'll practice with a safe friend. Like, and so for me, that's my current phase, is just being open to, I'm not good at sharing, but I want to be. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how we start. I've always wanted to eat out alone, but I'm not afraid, but I want to, so
Um,
it's changing the language of,
yeah.
it's not that I won't, but how.
Uh-huh. How you think about it not as like not as finite, right? Like
Yes, it's
it's
not. Yeah.
possible, it's what I want, I'm trying, we're gonna
Yeah.
get there. So what's one of the pieces of your past that's the hardest still for you to talk about?
I would say so. Backing up, I mentioned briefly that my older sister and I were never separated. The biggest thing about being sisters, there was 5 of us. 2 got adopted into another family, and then my mom adopted 3 of us. But at that time, it was just me and my older sister, and, we grew up together. We went through so much together. I mean, I would watch crazy things happen to her, and we went through so much together. And it fast forward 18 years old, I had the choice to go to college.
Mm,
And so I went to college at a in Sacramento. So grew up in San Diego, and that was the last year I saw my sister. That was the last year that I she left. I took care of my sister. I would drive her everywhere. I would make sure she was safe. I
mhm.
was the protector role in our
Yeah.
family. We would be left for weeks at a time growing up, a week or so, and we had to get food, and I would steal
Wow.
from 7-Eleven, or they found my sister in a dumpster because we were looking for food, or there's just stories of, I had to be the ringleader. Okay, how do we get out of the dumpster? How do we find food? And so fast forward, I carried that role in childhood, and I still see tendencies of it with myself in adulthood, but I don't have to protect anymore. I
Yeah.
know she's in there, so it's a tool more so than just a identity.
Yeah.
And so for me, the year I left for college was the year that I told myself I don't have to live to protect her anymore.
Mhm.
And I found out that she left back to my birth mom in Pennsylvania,
Mm,
and that was the last year I saw her, so I was 18 or 19 years old. And I think the hardest thing for me to grasp about that is, again, it comes back to choices, and that was one of the hardest choices. That was the biggest self-love piece I could have done for myself at that time, because I knew my sister wasn't gonna have me in town anymore. I knew that she couldn't necessarily rely on me, and
mhm,
so I didn't think that she'd leave, but she did. And,
mm.
I pursued my degree. I believed in myself. I had to take a chance. I couldn't stop saving her anymore. It was
Yeah.
her journey too. And so the hardest part for me was that was the first year we were separated, and the last year I'd see her.
Mm. Have you reconnected with your birth mom?
No, I haven't talked to my birth mom since I was
Mm,
7 years old.
by choice?
Yeah. She got us all, like, we were in this orphanage, and there's like these visiting rooms, and she brought us all these like school supplies. And I remember Holly's was plaid, mine was plaid green,
Mm,
Jacqueline's was red. And I grabbed everyone's school supplies out of her hand
mhm,
and said, everyone's hands, and gave it back to my birth mom. I said, please stop buying our love. Just leave us alone.
mhm,
And I gave it back to her, and I was like, we're done. Like, let us just
mhm.
live. Like,
Yeah.
leave us alone.
Yeah.
And so that was the last thing I said to her. But she's reached out through like social media.
Mhm,
Um, at the age of 9, when my mom adopted me and my sisters, we changed our name. And
mhm.
so I named myself Courtney Brooke because I wanted to start over.
Yeah.
I wanted just a new slate, and I didn't want my birth mom finding me. And so
Mm,
she eventually did find me. And she would send messages, but I wasn't like curious at all.
yeah.
I think when people think about adopted kids, is like that's a common question, is do you want to find your birth mom, or have you, or do you still talk? And that it's a good question, but it's not the same for every
Right.
kid. I mean, my sister was 11 when she left her mom. Like, we already had attachment. We were supposed to just be pushed through the system being that old. So having that on our label, um people didn't want to adopt us.
Yeah.
And Holly had this calling to just go back, and
Mm.
that's her journey, just like my journey
Yeah.
was to go to college. But I told her, like, if you go talk to her, then I can't talk to you, because I don't want her finding me, or I have a dream to follow, and no one's getting in my way, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so as much as I love my sister, it's, yeah, it's her choice too.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're big on making peace with the past. How have you come to like understand that relationship and, everything that happened with your mom and your family and where you are today? And like, how do you believe the way that you view it has enabled you really to like fearlessly go after your calling and your purpose?
I'm so, so big on peace with the past. I think it's an oxymoron, but I truly believes it's several things, but basically for those of you that don't have that trauma, but just have had things that affected us, and maybe it was a breakup or the test grade you just didn't do well on, or the house you necessarily aren't living in that you don't love, or whatever it might be, but it's this energy about making peace. You can't change your past. You can't let it define you. And I think when I hear the peace with your past is you don't let your story own you. It doesn't define you. Yeah, it's shaped who you are. Yeah, me being adopted is a huge part of who I am, but I'm not going to let it own me. I'm not going to let it, oh, I was adopted so I can act this way. I was adopted so I can't reach for CEO of Nike, or, I'm not going to let it define me. And for years, I tried to package my past in a way that made it easier for people to digest. I didn't want to be seen as a foster kid. I never really shared it. I hid it. And this is also another part of making a peace with your past is I didn't want people to feel bad for me because of me being a foster care kid or me being seen left. I compare foster care kids how people see pit bulls. They're known as problematic, a little more aggressive. You might have to train them more. They might be a little different. They might need a little more help, and it's an it's the only metaphor I could see of how people can be like, but I love, and some people, but I love pit bulls. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
each kid has their own. But I didn't want to be seen as the kid with the baggage. Oh, people would say, oh, but you don't look like you're from foster care. You don't act like it. And so I, I just minimized it. I was
Yeah.
tired of hearing those comments, but the truth is you can't fully step into your future if you're still hiding. And I felt that. I was ignoring it. I was pushing it away.
Mhm.
And for me to fully embrace the woman that I want to become and the woman I want to lead with, I have to talk about it, and I get
Yeah.
to talk about it. I had it happen to me.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean I'm going to erase it, or doesn't mean I'm toxic positive about it. It happened to me, but that's why I push my clients to just stop running from the hard parts.
Yeah.
Making peace from the past is,
Mhm.
yeah, it's hard. Maybe you need a little more therapy on it, or it just
Mhm.
hits you a little bit differently. But when you own your story, it's going to be messy. It's going to be painful. It's going to be
Yeah.
ugly, so
Mhm.
ugly. But you get your control. And that's
Yeah.
the beauty of it. You get your control because
Yeah.
it's your message.
Yeah.
And it no longer defines you, but you start defining it. You start defining it when you share your story.
Yeah. I recently had David Meltzer on the podcast and I asked him what were the two things he thought that were stopping people from reaching their full potential. And one, he said the story they're telling themselves about the past, and two, their own self-image, that you can't outperform your own self-image. So for our listeners who are telling themselves this story of the past and why it's keeping them stuck, focus on rewriting that story and maybe how you can use that story to empower you and to learn from, as opposed to have it keep you stuck.
Yeah, I think, and it's not going to be pretty, and it's okay,
Yeah.
it is messy. I don't like myself some days when I get off of a therapy call, and it's not like I'm sitting there talking about my childhood. I don't really remember my childhood, right? I don't. But the emphasis around people say, "Oh, that must have been hard," or "I feel sorry
Mhm.
for you," or "I'm sorry you didn't have Christmas," and it's like, I'm not. Like,
Yeah.
think about a kid. Like,
Mhm.
they are smiling like the kids in
Right.
Uganda. Like, you see those beautiful big smiles.
Yeah.
Kids don't. It's the weight of society. So, I would encourage people to separate themselves from what society thinks and what you think, because me,
Mhm.
like, although my childhood was quote unquote shitty, it was my childhood, and it is what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're smashing the stereotype society puts on experiences and
Yeah.
upbringing, and we tend to just identify with that, but, like, that's such a broad spectrum and category, and we all have this really individual life and experience, and this life is a gift, and it's up to us to really seize and make the most of it no matter what we've been through in the past.
Yeah, and I think people try to relate with me, honestly, with that. I think people want to relate. And I'm reading this book with Dr. Perry and Oprah about it's called What Happened to You. And we'll take a common topic like divorce and we'll say, oh, I'm sorry that happened. But that's assuming that it's one blanket statement of, oh, we all know what divorce is like. It's hard on the kids. But when you ask the question, oh, well, what happened to you during that? That really customizes it and allows you to not bring in an expectation or your own experience, but then relates to that person. So I find that when people don't know what to talk about, use that question. What happened to you during that? What came up for you?
Yeah.
Because then you're really just getting to know what happened to that
Mhm.
person in that specific time.
Yeah, instead of trying to relate when it's something that you haven't personally been through.
Yeah. Or relating off of something that you might assume happened.
Yeah. So
Right?
true. So you say happiness is a hustle.
Yeah.
You know, not every day is rainbows and butterflies. What does that look like for you on days where it's maybe hard to get out of bed?
There every day is different and I saw this, I don't know if it was on Instagram, but stuff gets cycled so much about but it's saying like say you woke up 5% today and you gave it 5%. That's your 100%. If you woke up 5% that and you gave 5%, that to me is 100%. And so it's really just practicing grace on ourselves. It's really being kind and remembering, hey, we're not robots. We have different things that happen. We don't sleep right. We might have had a death. Recently our dog was just told that she might not ever be able to run again. And so it's working with yourself with life. And so, hustling for happiness, it's this idea of it takes work to be happy,
Mm.
right? It's a constant journey, whether it is as simple as, I don't feel well. Well, what are you doing in that moment to try to? Are you
Mhm.
walking or are you just going to eat junk food? But I think it is that practicing grace with ourselves. It's understanding where we are in life and not being so hard, but then hustling for happiness is knowing, happiness is not given to us whether you've had a perfect childhood or not. And I don't think there is, but allowing yourself the feelings to come up when they come up
Mhm.
and working through those, but just allowing yourself to just, how can I move forward today?
Mhm.
What do I need to do to show up
Yeah.
today? And it could be as simple as reaching out to a friend, or my favorite thing is taking a hot shower, right?
Mhm.
Like just resetting
Yeah.
and just constantly working at that.
Yeah. Keep showing up even when you don't feel like it, and pay attention to all the little ways there are for you to shift your energy. As Courtney said, a shower will do it, calling a friend, going on a
Yeah.
walk, making a healthy meal. I'm curious, are there any daily practices or mindset tools that you use to kind of help you stay on track with your goals and purpose?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm constantly like again shoot for the moon and get the stars every day, so that can get exhausting and I have to remind myself to I always program moving my body, whether if it's stretching, sauna, cold plunge, skiing, it's snowboard season. So it's like I see I'm like, I need to get out there. But it's making it treating my mindset and my movement just
Mhm.
as equal as a doctor's appointment, just as equal as just showing up for this podcast interview. It's treating that as an equal and scheduling it like it, because if you don't allow yourself that break, you will burn out.
Mhm.
You will start to digress. And so for me, daily practices is moving my body. I tell myself, just give myself 20 minutes a day. Most of the time, it's an hour, right? But I said, just get in there for
Yeah.
20 minutes and keep going. Another one is it's journaling. It's I have a 3-minute journaling practice and it's what will I let go of today? Which is what are those things that we're holding on to? We wake up and I do this in the morning. It's like, what will I let go of? Trying to get it all done, trying to be perfect. Um, Maybe it's a not to-do list. So maybe not checking my phone or not being on social media, but what is weighing on me that I want to just let go of? And by writing that down, you release it. And
Yeah.
then what am I grateful for? That brings that gratitude practice, that presence, that what do we have now that let's acknowledge it. And
Yeah.
then what will I focus on today? Right.
Mhm.
And that focus is setting your intention for the day. And so I just do 1 minute each
Mhm.
question, but it really allows me to let go, bring back my intention. And then that gratitude practice just reminds me,
Yeah.
gosh, I am so grateful. I
Yeah.
mean, to be here.
To be alive. Each day is a
Yeah.
gift. And when we
Yeah.
start practicing being grateful, I believe we're given more to be grateful for.
Yeah, oh my gosh. And when you start doing that grateful gratitude practice, you're actually okay, yeah, you say grateful for my shower. I'm grateful for this. But then day 50 into this, you start to see the littler things. You
Yes.
start to see, oh my gosh, I was
Mhm.
sick the last week and now I'm feeling so good. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, my health. What am I going to do for my body? Like I had a
Yeah.
ruptured implant breaking down in my body for 5 years. It's my year anniversary this February.
Yeah.
But last December, I was sick in bed. I didn't know it was what was going on. We got like the ultrasound. At first, they told me it was cancer. Then it was a ruptured implant. But I was in bed and I did my last snowboard run here in Jackson.
Yeah.
And I did 4 runs and I was so tired. 2 weeks ago, I did that same run and I did
Mhm.
it 7 times. And I'm just like sat there and brought my gratitude practice into the moment. But
Yeah.
then it starts to just like be a part of
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
thoughts, right?
Yeah. There are miracles happening all around us and waiting to be tuned into. And it's similar with like the journaling. You may journal one night and be like, this didn't really do anything for me. Make it a consistent practice. Commit to 30 days with the practicing gratitude. Sit in a mindfulness meditation and just start making this part of your daily life. And I swear, soon enough, you're going to see big changes.
Yeah. And I think another thing for me when you say what do I do for my daily mindset is I just really like go slow with myself. It's not a race, it's
Yeah.
life and to just again those little enjoyments of, maybe it's scheduling that date night or, sitting and reading on that book, but for me
Mhm.
I've been finding myself that I really the boundaries aspect of saying no to what drains me because I'm
Yeah.
allowing more fulfillment in the daily things. So if I really find myself getting drained with social media, I'm like, get off, like
Yeah.
I really miss reading my book. Well, what's stopping me from reading my book? Oh, I'm on my phone too much. So then
Right.
I'm like, no phone, So
Yeah.
creating those boundaries so that way you can allow
Mhm.
the things that you miss or want in. So mine is like a phone boundary so I can do more reading or
Yeah.
sauna. So it's
Yeah.
kind of playing with it and
Yeah.
working with the mind.
Boundaries are so important. I think they not only help you build confidence because you know, like, this is what I'm going to make time for, they also make other people respect you more because they realize you prioritize your own time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then I'm sure it inspires them to be like, wait, I should do that.
Yes. You also host the Hustle for Happiness podcast. Tell
Yeah.
us about your show.
I love my podcast so much. It's a therapeutic device, an outlet. I'm the type of person that if I was in Starbucks, I'd have someone's whole story by the end of the Starbucks line. We'd be getting each other's numbers. And this is like an occurrence. And this is like a passion of mine. I am genuinely curious about how I was supposed to cross paths. And so, Hustle for Happiness is really about mindset, resilience, and rewriting our story. A lot of what we've talked about today,
Yeah.
but I live and breathe it inside the why not bring it on air. And so I have anywhere from doctors to athletes to coaches to experts to even everyday people, but we share real, raw, and inspiring stories, things to help people just live better. But it's just a really curated podcast, but it's really to help the listeners shift their perspective and to take ownership of their happiness and realize that they have more power than they think. Whether it's with health or fitness or, working with our emotions is a huge one and not just using medicine, but it's literally a podcast that's a toolbook or toolbox for people just to show up and they'll probably walk away with 1 to 2 gems. But it's really just a deep conversation of stories and conversations and real talk. And it's funny too.
Mhm, amazing. It's time for us all to get back in the driver's seat of our own stories.
Yeah. And we can. And if
Yeah.
you're not in your own driver's seat, then like that, you don't have your power. So it's really just time to get our power back,
Yeah.
right?
Ti Time to tune in. Courtney,
Yeah.
as we begin to wrap up, is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Anything I'd like to leave the audience with. I really just we start today. Whether you've tried something 50 times, start again today.
Mhm,
Start today and keep starting over and over every day. It's really it doesn't have to be heavy. Growth is always going to keep happening
mhm.
and have fun with it, right?
Yeah, each day is a new opportunity to begin again.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners find you?
So I'm on all social, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. Just hey, like hello, but hey, Courtney Brooke. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today. I hope to see you soon in San Diego.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I really had a fun time.